There are fast cars. There are expensive cars. There are legendary cars. And then, standing alone, like a titanium monument to engineering, you have the Mercedes-Benz 300 SLR Uhlenhaut Coupé, the car that in 2022 sold for a rather silly $143 million, officially making it the most expensive car in the history of wheels. That's right, for the price of a literal skyscraper in Dubai, someone bought a coupe from 1955. But this wasn't just any coupe. This was a road-going missile with gull-wing doors, a magnesium body, and a backstory filled with genius, war, racing dominance, horrific tragedy, and an engineer so committed he used it as his daily. This is the story of how Mercedes-Benz built what is quite possibly the first hypercar before the term even existed, and why it is still the most desirable four-wheeled object on the planet. Now, to understand the Uhlenhaut Coupé, you've got to start with the man whose name it bears, Rudolf Uhlenhaut, born in London to a British mother and German father. He was essentially the last person you'd expect to helm Nazi Germany's post-war racing program. Yet, by the mid-1930s, he was already in charge of the Mercedes-Benz racing division. Now, Uhlenhaut wasn't your typical lab-coated boffin. He was the kind of engineer who didn't just sit behind drafting tables. He drove the bloody things himself, fast, hard, and constantly. If the car wasn't good enough for him on the track, it wasn't good enough to wear the three-pointed star. That made him uniquely qualified to do something no engineer had done before: build a racing car that could be driven on the road without compromise. And after the Second World War had reduced most of Germany's infrastructure to rubble, Mercedes needed something to remind the world they still knew how to build the best machinery in Europe. Enter the W196, Mercedes-Benz's Formula One weapon for the 1954 and 1955 seasons. It had a 2.5-liter straight-8 engine, Desmotronic valve timing, yes, like Bugatti bikes, and direct fuel injection, lifted straight out of the Luftwaffe toolbox. This wasn't a car, it was an engineer's fever dream. From this, Uhlenhaut and his team built the 300 SLR, a monster designed for the World Sports Car Championship. While it shared a name with the much tamer 300 SL Gullwing, the SLR was a totally different animal, one with magnesium skin and a racing pedigree sharper than a gin hangover. Under the impossibly light bodywork sat a 3-liter straight-8 engine, mounted at a 33-degree angle to keep the bonnet low enough to slice through the air like a scalpel. It made over 300 horsepower, which in 1955 was absolutely insane. In a season that included the Mile Maglia, which Sterling Moss won in one of these, with a time no one ever managed to beat, the SLR was dominant. But then came Le Mans, and this was bad. Now, the 1955 Le Mans disaster is still, to this very day, the deadliest accident in motorsport history. During the race, Pierre Lievach's 300 SLR launched off the back of a slower car, disintegrated mid-air, and sent flaming magnesium fragments into the crowd. 83 spectators were killed. Mercedes-Benz immediately withdrew from racing and wouldn't return to motorsports for decades. And just like that, the most advanced racing car in the world had nowhere to go. Now, before the crash, Uhlenhaut had commissioned 2 special SLR coupes fitted with enclosed hardtops and more aerodynamic bodies for high-speed events like the Carrera Panamericana in Mexico. That race obviously never happened, but the cars were built anyway. So Uhlenhaut claimed one as a company car. And what a company car it was! The 300SL Uhlenhaut Coupé wasn't just a dress-up race car. It was the race car. The same 3-liter straight-8 engine, same tubular space frame chassis, same drum brakes, albeit inboard to reduce unsprung weight. Even the body was magnesium. Oh, and it could do 180 miles per hour in 1955. That made it the fastest road-legal car in the world by a country mile. Now, the most famous story involving the Uhlenhaut Coupé happened when Rudolf himself, running late for a meeting, took the car from Munich to Stuttgart, a 143-mile trip, and he did it in under an hour. Now, this would be illegal in about 192 countries today, but back then, on the unrestricted Autobahn, it was just impressive. And loud. At full chat, the SLR's straight 8 screamed like an artillery barrage. You wouldn't hear the radio, you wouldn't hear your passenger, you wouldn't even hear yourself think. It was glorious. But 143 million is still a lot, so what made this thing so bloody special? Well, let's break it down. You had a magnesium alloy body, which weighed less than your average fridge, a straight 8 racing engine with Desmotronic valves and mechanical fuel injection, a 4-speed manual gearbox connected to a limited slip differential, and a curb weight of under 1,000 kilograms. But let's not forget, this thing also had gull-wing doors, so it just gets better. But here is the kicker. Mercedes-Benz never sold either of the two coupes. They were museum pieces. One remained in the Mercedes-Benz Museum. The other was used occasionally for PR and heritage events. But that was until May 2022. In an unprecedented move, Mercedes-Benz decided to auction off one of the two coupes to raise money for environmental and educational initiatives via the Mercedes-Benz Fund, held in absolute secrecy at the company's museum in Stuttgart. Obviously, this auction drew in a crowd of ultra-wealthy collectors, and the final hammer price, £135 million, or about $143 million. That obliterated the previous record of around $70 million for a Ferrari 250 GTO. Why? Because it ticked every box possible. It was fast, it was rare, it was beautiful, it was historically important, and most importantly, it was never meant to be sold. As I said previously, you could argue that this was the first hypercar, built not to a cost, but to a standard. No compromises, no nonsense. It was never intended to be practical. It was intended to be the fastest, the most advanced machine on the road or track. It was, in every sense, a prototype made flesh. So, let's ask the question, is the 300 SLR Uhlenhaut Coupé worth the $143 million price tag? Absolutely. Sort of. If any car should be worth this much, it should be this one, but 143 million is just a stupid amount in my mind. In my brain, almost nothing is worth this amount, but like if a car should be this expensive, I would choose this one or the lost Bugatti. That's the only two cars I can think of straight off my mind that should be worth about this much, but it's still like this, it's too much for a car in my brain. But yeah, you can let me know what you guys think. But we have to remember that this is not just a car. It's a time capsule from a forgotten age of motorsports, a rolling sculpture born of war-era innovation and peacetime racing insanity. It was forged in the same fire as World War II aircraft and driven by a man who designed it himself and then used it to commute like a lunatic on the Autobahn. And today, while Bugattis and Pagani's roll off production lines with six-figure price tags and diamond-studded gear knobs, there is still only one car that commands more than any other. It didn't race, it barely left Germany, but it is the Holy Grail. But at the end of this video, please let me know what you guys thought of this car and its story. It is a really interesting story in my opinion, and that's why I made a video on it. So let me know what you guys think. If you guys enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And if you guys did like it, you'll most probably enjoy most of my other stuff. So just go through my channel, see if there's something else to like. I'll check you guys in the next one. Cheers,